Proceed when you're ready.
Chair Young, Vice Chair Manning, and Ranking Member Miller, thank you for allowing me to address this committee about HB 183. My name is Cam Ogden, and I'm a former transgender child. After years of not being affirmed and having to fight for acceptance from my family and peers, I now stand before you as a transgender adult. But I wasn't always this proud. I spent a long time living as someone that I wasn't. I stayed in the closet because I wasn't supported at home and because I knew how I would be treated harshly at school. I remember one classmate of mine was also transgender. Unlike me, she was brave enough to be herself. Contrary to unscientific theories believed by some, watching my friend leave school and cross a busy intersection to use the restroom didn't make me think being trans was trendy. It made me afraid. I am a college student currently pursuing an education in political science and data analytics. Before that, I was a student at The Ohio State University. I've spent a great deal of time on OSU and Columbus State's campuses, but even I wasn't aware of which restrooms HB 183 would force me to start using, if it should pass. So I looked at a map of the gender-neutral restrooms at Columbus State, and my girlfriend looked at what was available in the buildings at OSU where she also studies and works. What we found was upsetting. Many of the buildings in both of our daily schedules had no gender-neutral restroom at all. Notably, that includes the 24-hour library where my girlfriend works and the student lounge I study at on campus. My girlfriend has coworkers who are transgender, and I don't know what they will do while working to relieve themselves. I do know that the nearest gender-neutral restroom to my usual study spot is across the street in a parking garage. Separating transgender people's public accommodations from cisgender people will not make anyone more safe. It will simply result in unequal access and higher rates of harassment and assault in school environments for transgender youth. However, I do know that safety is a serious concern for those who support HB 183. I share that concern, but this bill does nothing to address that violence. Sexual assault is a real and pervasive issue on college campuses and schools. We know that transgender people are assaulted on college campuses at the same rate as cisgender women. And this is not just a hypothetical for me. This is very real for me. I have been sexually assaulted on campus. 2 men saw me in my work jacket and pajama pants while I was staying the night at my girlfriend's dorm. They sexually assaulted me and called me homosexual slurs. I don't want to relive that horrific experience in front of you all today, but I will share one detail. I held my own mouth shut with my hands because I was terrified of being outed as transgender by my voice if I cried too loudly. 1 year ago, I was sexually assaulted and felt terrified of what could happen if my attackers found out I was transgender. 6 years ago, I saw my friend cross the street to use the restroom and felt afraid of how I would be treated at school if my school found out I was transgender. Today, I feel that same fear looking out at you all. Today, I feel that same fear because I'm afraid of how myself and the other students who have come here today will be treated because they are transgender. Across Ohio, transgender youth are afraid of you. I really want you to let that sink in. They're afraid of you. Since I was assaulted, I have struggled with anxiety in campus environments. I use the women's restroom because I am a woman, but also because one of my greatest fears is running into one of the men who attacked me during the most vulnerable part of my day. It's not rational, but fear rarely is. Many transgender women I know started using the women's restroom and changing rooms because they experienced some form of sexual harassment or assault. What those men did to me doesn't define me. The assault and harassment that cisgender and transgender youth experience means nothing about who we are. It's just a reflection of the world we live in. Please don't support a world where I have to use the restroom in a parking garage instead of the one that I sit right next to while studying. Where my girlfriend's trans coworkers need to leave the building they work in at night just to relieve themselves, or where students at my old high school have to go back to crossing a busy intersection just to pee. If you vote for HB 183, these horrific experiences become a reflection of you, because you will be something just as bad as a bully. You will be a bystander to that. Instead of addressing the men who attack women and policing their actions, school administrators and lawmakers constantly minimize women's experiences and look for scapegoats who can't fight back. Please don't continue that cycle. Please vote no on HB 183. I'm ready
Thank
for
you.
any questions.
Yes, are there any questions? Representative Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's disheartening to hear that you were sexually assaulted. I hope you can recover from that experience and live a fruitful life. But you concentrated in your testimony on the word fear a lot. And and that you use a woman's restroom because you are a woman. So what do you tell to the biological women that have been previously sexually assaulted and also have fear when they see you walk in the restroom because they see you as a biological male?
Thank you for that question, and thank you for asking it so respectfully. Chair Young, may I respond? Yes, thank you. I understand fear, and I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge that Representative Williams is asking me about fear and not sexual assault, because this legislation is not in any way going to prevent sexual assaults. All this legislation does is exploit fear. And I am a young woman, I have friends who are young women, and we commiserate with each other about the fears that we have or the experiences that we've had. And oftentimes when you commiserate with someone about one of the worst days of your life that you're still recovering from, you ask difficult questions, very difficult questions. Questions like, why didn't they get punished? Do they still think about me? Do they even remember? But one question I've never had anyone ask when we're talking about our experiences with sexual assault is, gee, I wonder what that person's original birth certificate looks like. It's useless. This does nothing to quell the fears that women have, and it exploits their fears to push a legislative agenda that will hurt transgender youth. Transgender youth at colleges are sexually assaulted at the same rate as cisgender women. And the perpetrators of those attacks are by and large cisgender men. I don't want this conversation to be distracted by a scapegoat that can't fight back. I want us to talk about how we're actually going to protect sexual assault victims and how we're actually going to prevent them, not ask about their genitals or birth certificate. Thank you.
Follow up? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate your statement, but you didn't answer the question. So you said that this legislation would have zero impact on sexual assaults. Are you aware that there have been sexual assaults across the country in female bathroom by transgender individuals? And if you could answer the first question, what would you say to a woman who fears fear when you enter a restroom because they see you as a biological male? If there was a single student that experienced that fear, what would you say to them?
I understand, and thank you for restating the question. I believe I answered it, but I'm going to make it more clear.
Through the chair, please.
Oh, yes, thank you, sir. Through the chair, may I respond? Yes, thank you. I would like you to enunciate more clearly, because I think I'm having trouble understanding why I'm scary, what threat I pose, and also I think you should realize that I haven't had issues like that. If you want to ban me from a restroom because I look like a biological male, I think you should ban every woman who is over 5'8", every woman with short hair, or who has a little bit of facial hair because they had PCOS in their teens. That fear is real. I understand fear. I understand it better than you because I've been sexually assaulted, and I've talked to my peers who have been sexually assaulted. We don't have that fear. I'd like to address the actual fears that women have about sexual assault, not the ones that are made up. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you very much for coming forward.